And we've been bringing you 360 coverage of the debate around policing since the Michael Brown shooting in Ferguson, Missouri 7 years ago. But the Karen Garner case in Loveland is much different from others we've discussed in the past.
So set aside Gardner's age and size and gender, her illness, dementia, can be really difficult to spot if you don't know the signs. They include memory loss and difficulty communicating with people.
Most police officers aren't equipped to handle it. Here is Denver 7's Lance Hernandez.
I'm going home.
No, you're not.
I think what is disturbing in the video is you see the officer kind of immediately treat her like enemy number one.
CU law professor Aya Gruber says this video shows an utter lack of compassion and human feeling. She thinks police overreacted and used too much force on an 80-pound woman with dementia. But national use of force expert Ed Obayashi says the officers acted the way they were trained.
She did not want to stop. The officer merely, as in countless times in these incidents, reached out to grab her. She pulled away.
He says there was no indication Karen Garner suffered from mental illness. I asked if officers need more training on how to deal with people experiencing dementia or any other not readily apparent mental health issue. He says training is preferred, but there are limitations.
There are trained medical professionals that go through years of dedicated training. You can't expect an officer to be put through the same level of intense discipline. That is not their primary role.
What about excessive force?
I think the force they used was absolutely excessive to the nature of the charges, the nature of the suspect, the unarmed suspect. And then, when you put on top of it kind of this very dismissive and demeaning attitude.
Garner apparently suffered a broken arm, dislocated shoulder, and sprained wrist.
Does that indicate that there was excessive force used?
An otherwise reasonable use of force can inadvertently result in an injury that was not intended.
Obayashi says the angle of limbs, frailty, and pre-existing conditions come into play. Regardless of the outcome of situations like this, there is no question police are under a microscope like never before. Lance Hernandez, Denver 7.
And this arrest is also raising questions about whether it's worth it to call police over a low-dollar shoplifting crime. According to the New York Times, Walmart changed its policy 15 years ago and does not prosecute any first-time shoplifters taking less than $25 worth of stuff. Now, we reached out to the company to find out why police were called in this case. No response yet. So I asked law professor Aya Gruber about the company's approach after she watched the video.
This is not what we have this armed force for, right? And I really think that stores like Walmart could do more for their citizens if they also took a more measured approach.
We've seen a lot of reaction to this video on social media, the majority of it shock. One person writes, "I want to give this lady a hug and tell her it's going to be all right. My mother," she says, "suffered from memory problems, so hearing this lady say she's going home but wasn't able to really hurt." I thank you for your comments already, and keep them coming. 360 at thedenverchannel.com.